It's the video. So thank you, everybody. I see a lot of old friends and new friends. And Sheridan, I haven't seen you in 100 years in the same room. It's lovely to see you. Um, so I thought I would talk about our forms of practice. And we have meditation, we have chanting, we have bowing, we have walking meditation, we have Kangan meditation. And so I'm going to talk about each of these just a little. You already had an introduction to sitting meditation if you were here for practice. And I want to add a few things to that. There's some forms that were not mentioned. So being aware of breath was mentioned. I like counting breath. On the out breath, first 1, next out breath 2, you go up to 10, you start again at 1. There's also mantra practice using a mantra. And very fast mantra was what my teacher, Zen Master Song recommended. And he said it was like the spin cycle on a washing machine. You know, when he first came to this country, he supported himself by fixing washing machines. So he understood spin cycles of washing machine. So very fast, faster than you can sub-vocalize it. Not just faster than you can speak it, faster than you can sub-vocalize it. And when I was young and first starting to practice, and the people around me were young and first starting to practice, and we would get into competitions. How many times could you do Kwanzaa Bosal in a minute? You know, could you do it 100 times in a minute? You know, that kind of thing. But this fast mantra is very interesting. It really makes mind and body come together. And I should have brought beads in here. If you have beads and you count the beads, you know, maybe every 8, maybe every 16, you know, you find your own rhythm. And you do that, then mind and body really comes together. So that's fast mantra. And then there's what am I? Don't know. So Zen Master Sungsan always said, I do not teach Buddhism. I only teach don't know. So this don't know is very important, and I'm not going to talk about it much. But it's really, really important. This mind before speech, before thinking. So you have this great question, what am I? And instead of setting it up here, how do I feel about it, setting it here, you set it there, you know? So this, you always, when you're practicing, you always let your energy, you know, sort of just rest right here. Just let it sink down, you know, just let it sort of like it fell into the water and it's just slowly drifting to the bottom. So you concentrate your energy here. That's why we have this mudra. So what am I? Don't know. So big question, what am I? Some people like, what is this? There are other questions you can have. But great question, and then don't know. So you don't get stuck here trying to figure it out, you know? And then there's great question all by itself, which is actually the practice that I've been doing for a while. You know, I started out counting my breaths, and then I moved to mantra, fast mantra, and then I moved to what am I, don't know, which I couldn't do for about 10 years because every time I did the what am I, you know, this would start up, so I just couldn't do it. Fast mantra is very good if you don't want your thinking mind to sort of take over. And then eventually I could do that, and then eventually it became just what am I? And other great questions can arise. Like at one point I was sitting a solo retreat out in the Southern Rockies, and I'm doing walking meditation, and suddenly this question came up, where does mind come from? And it's just like, where does mind come from, you know? And then where does mind come from is not a very good meditation. It has too many syllables. But mind comes from where? That works. Mind comes from where? So for a number of years, my meditation was mind comes from where? Mind comes from where, And then I went back to what am I? So those are sort of basic meditation forms. And they all have no cognition involved. At the same time, they're not just watching the breath. They're not something like shikantaza, this kind of awareness. They have something, some focus. And this is very common. We're a Lin Chi school. Rinzai is a cousin to us. So we come down, our lineage comes through Lin Chi. Our lineage is the one involved with Konghans and Konghan practice. And all Lin Chi schools, their meditations have this property that there's a very specific focus, whatever it is, whether it's great question or counting breaths or mantra or whatever, there's always this focus in Lin Chi schools. And that means that as our mind wanders, as you were told in the beginning, I don't know the name of the person, I'm sorry, so I can't say the name, but as the person who in the beginning, you said, you just bring your mind back. You just bring your mind back. And thoughts arise and feelings arise, and you just bring your mind back. Zen Master Sung San used to say, "You tell your backseat driver, shut up!" So this backseat driver, it's always there. But we have this very specific thing. So when the backseat driver, starts taking over, we have something to bring our mind back to. So that's sitting meditation. And of course, you could write books and books upon books about sitting meditation. But that's all I'm going to say right now. And then I want to talk about prostrations. And I'm going to ask, is there somebody there who can demonstrate a prostration? You'll have to go forward. There's someone wearing a really dark robe. You'll have to be about where that person wearing a dark robe is, sort of towards the monitor. And move forward. And I'm going to ask you to stand sideways so people can see your form. Okay. So you always a standing bow, and do 3 of them. So you go down and come up. I'm going to ask you to move a little away from the monitor because we can't see your hands. So move towards Jeff or whoever's in the middle there. Yeah, that's good. So you go down again. And I don't know if you can see, his hands are like this. Sort of cupped like that. Come up again. And one more time. So again, the hands are cupped, the head is down, come up, and then at the end of the session, you do a standing bow. Actually, we always come up to a kneeling position, then do a standing bow, if that's good enough. Okay, so now I have really bad knees, and I used to do 108 prostrations in 8 minutes on my own time, if I wasn't with a group. And that was just a few years ago, and then my knees went bad. And now at home I struggle. I do like 3 prostrations, and it's pathetic. If you watched me, you'd want to call like 911 or something because I was having such a hard time. But no matter what, there's one thing you can do. And that one thing, no matter what your situation, unless you have to lie down, is this. I don't know if you could see that. Where the hands are like this and your head is down, like that. And you can do that from a chair. I actually do sit squats. I do bows like this, But so, when I broke my hip and I couldn't even do sit squats, so what I did is, when I was finally able to not just lie down, I would kneel, because back then I could kneel, now I can't. And I would just do this motion, over and over again. So that's very important, because that motion, when you are down like this, that is the motion That is the primate expression of submission. And that's why many, many religions have this. You know, it might be a main thing like it is in Islam and like it is in Buddhism, or it might be, you know, like if you're Jewish, you know, the cantor will do it once a year on Yom Kippur. That's it. And sometimes the congregation is invited to do it with them. But, you know, if you're a Catholic monk or a Catholic nun, you do lots of these things. And sometimes people do it like going forward. But this thing where you're on the bottom, you're totally submissive. You're absolutely vulnerable. And then what do? You stand up or sit up, whatever it is, you know? And there you are. And you go down. And then you're up. And then you're down. And then you're up. And my husband likes to say, and remember, you're moving around your center of gravity. That's another thing, too. So this is, what is this? This is physical. This is not in the mind. This is something you do it, and you do it, and you do it. And it's like you're reprogramming your body on a cellular level. It's nothing you control. It's nothing you think about. It happens. So you do it over and over and over. And something happens. This submission and then up. And then submission and then up. And then submission and then up. And it's like your body just reprograms. So if you, I don't know how it is now, but in the old days, I am told, if you went to a Zen teacher in Korea and you said, I have all these problems, you know, my spouse has left me and my kids are taking drugs and I lost my job and, you know, I have cancer, what should I do? They said, 500 prostrations, 1,000 prostrations every day, right? You know? And why did they say that? They said that exactly because when you do this, when you do prostrations regularly, a decent number of them, then something happens. You change. And even if you can only do 3, you just keep doing those 3 every day. And something happens. So your center becomes strong. Your heart becomes open, your mind becomes clear. So that's prostrations. And then I want to talk about chanting. So chanting is very interesting because chanting is not about our producing a beautiful sound. Sometimes, you know, when you're sitting a retreat or maybe in your Sangha, there's somebody who absolutely cannot carry a tune. And, you know, at first, I know I would get kind of, why can't that person carry a tune? What's wrong with them? You know, like that. But after a while, I began to appreciate it. It was like this wonderful harmony. And, you know, I'd sit a retreat and there'd be somebody like that, and then they'd have to leave for some reason. And I'd miss them. You know, I'd miss them. They weren't there during chanting. They created they added a kind of fullness to the whole thing. So it's not about being beautiful. It's about hearing each other and supporting each other and being with each other. So that's chanting. And chanting is something else which is very interesting, and I'm going to get to this later. The thing about chanting is you are producing a sound that goes out into the world. And as I said, it doesn't matter if it's beautiful or whatever. You are producing a sound that goes out into this world. So you are not separate. When you're sitting, you can kind of get lost, you know, up here. You can kind of not enact your connection with this universe. And even when you're bowing, you know, you're not necessarily enacting your connection with this universe. It's not necessarily in your awareness. But when you're chanting, it's there. You're enacting a connection with this universe. So chanting is really wonderful. It's about listening if you're in a group. It's about enacting this connection to this universe. It's about becoming one. So I want to talk about walking meditation, which almost no one talks about in our school. There's some traditions like Thich Nhat Hanh, some Soto teachers, where walking is like a really, major thing. Like if you've ever sat a Soto retreat, their foot goes down like that, very slowly, and then it comes up again. And of course, at this point, the other foot is going down and coming, and it's really slow. I have problems with balance, and when I do that, I always think I'm going to fall over. It's just too slow for me. And ours, our practice isn't like that. We don't say, put all your attention to the muscles of the foot. We don't do stuff like that. It's just, we say walk. Walk in the correct relationship, so many feet behind the other person. And some people say to walk, lockstep, and some people say just keep the distance, but we don't make a big deal about it. But the thing about walking meditation is, walking, like, I'm looking at Raviv. Where are you, Raviv?
In New Zealand.
Okay, because the sun is shining. So Raviv, he has these chairs, and he has a table, and he has these windows looking out on all this green stuff. I don't know if it's a garden or, So if Raviv is walking in his room, there's a lot to look at. But you're doing walking meditation, and you just keep your practice going, and you just walk. You just walk. And you don't say, oh, wow, look at that great calligraphy. This is a great calligraphy. Steve Addis, who is a wonderful calligrapher, did this. Wow, what a great calligraphy. I'm walking and say, oh, what a calligraphy. No, it's just there. It's just there, like, the doorknob or something. So your mind doesn't get pulled this way and pulled that way. So you're moving in space, and there's stuff to look at. There's stuff to get caught up in, and you don't. You keep your practice going. You don't get tugged this way and tugged that way. So that's walking meditation. And then there's Kongan meditation. How many of you have not done Kongan practice? Oh, good, everyone's done Kongan practice. No, okay, all right. Almost everyone has done Kongan practice. So, Kongan practice, it's sort of where the rubber meets the road. So you can be sitting, I am in samadhi. This is so wonderful. Or you can be chanting, oh, this is so beautiful. Everyone is together. This is so wonderful. Or you could be doing prostrations and, oh, yes, my body is just, this movement feels so good, Or you're walking and, yes, I'm walking. But then you walk into the interview room and the teacher asks you something. And it's like, what happened? Where is my great enlightenment? Where is all this wonderfulness? And there you are. And the thing about Kongan practice is this in-the-moment relationship. You're there with one other person. Connecting with this one other person. And you very quickly become aware how difficult it is to connect with someone because all this stuff comes up. Does the teacher like me? Am I a good Zen student? Oh, I just said this stupid thing. Oh, I'm just so horrible, All this kind of stuff comes up. I'll never get this. I'm so tired of this. I've been on this Kangan for 3 years. All this kind of judgment and fear of judgment and all this stuff comes up. I don't like this Kangan. This is a stupid practice. All this stuff comes up and it 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 comes up, just like in the rest of our life. And I call the interview room, I call it the no consequence room, because it doesn't affect your job, it doesn't affect your relationships, it doesn't affect how much money you make. If you're in school, it doesn't affect your permanent record. It doesn't affect what kind of recommendations somebody's going to make for your next job. It doesn't affect anything. So it's this pure space where this mind that's always checking, you can see, oh, that's kind of useless. I don't need to do that, And at the same time, we're cutting through the normal standard ways of talking. We're cutting through the word traps that always exist. I mean, if someone asks you, does a dog have Buddha nature? I'll give you a hint. If you say yes, you're wrong. And if you say no, you're wrong. So how do you deal with that? Because we're taught, does a dog have Buddha nature? Well, gee, it's either yes or no, because that's how language usually works. But you've done Kangans for a while and you realize that you can't do that. So we're cutting through language. We're liberating ourselves from the word traps. There's a great phrase in some Kangan, word traps of these times, So we're cutting through these word traps. When we first learned to talk, like around 2 years old, we started learning to succumb to these word traps, that there was a certain way of thinking of things. And, there's the real world and then there's the language world, and they don't quite touch. But we get caught up in this language world and we can't burst through to the real world. And Kangan practice shows us how to break through, so we don't get caught in these preconceptions and conceptions and inceptions and whatever eptions you want. It teaches us to avoid the trap. So, I could say more about that, but I won't. And then you come to, why do we do this? So a long time ago, Si Hoi Liao, who later became Zen Master Subang, and he was a monk, Subang Sanim, and he wrote a postcard to Zen Master Sungsan. He was always very very kind of independent, He wasn't like, oh, great Zen Master. He was very independent. And he wrote a postcard, a kind of snarky postcard. What is the fast road to Zen? And, like the monk asking, does a dog have Buddha nature? I'm going to trip you up, right? So what is the fast road to Zen? And Zen Master Sungsan replied, not for me. So this not for me. So this practice is not about me. We have this vow. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all, liberate them all, whatever word you want. And there's actually no pronoun there. It's actually many beings without number. Vow, liberate, is what the Chinese says. So yeah. So that's our direction. Which gets back to, in Kangans, it's a relationship. You're in this room with somebody. Can you, be there? Actually be there with another human being. And then can you take that in the rest of your life? So in our morning bell chant, there's Wan Gong Bop Ke Je Jung Seng Dong Imita De Wan He Jin Mi Re Je Do Jung Seng Jata ilshi Sangbuddho. So that's vow together, Dharma world, all many beings. Together, enter Amida great vow ocean. That's Amida Buddha. Exhaust future, come occasion, save many beings. Self, other, one time, attain Buddha way. These were actually our marriage vows, my husband and I, except it was, in correct English, not the, sort of word by word translation. So this is very interesting. The English translation that goes you and I together simultaneously, but it's self, other. That means not just me and my husband, that means all beings together. What this whole thing is saying, we vow together with all the many beings, together enter the great vow ocean. Throughout time, exhaust future, throughout time. Right now, come occasion, right now, save the many beings, liberate the many beings. Self, other, simultaneously attain the Buddha way. So that's the direction of our practice. We don't just do this by ourselves. We do it with all beings, whether they know it or not. We do it with ants and scorpions. We do it with people who differ with us politically. We do it with people who have done horrible things. We do it with people who have had horrible things done to them. We do it with whatever creatures are out there in outer space that we don't know about, who have not been visiting our planet, because who would want to go there? So all the many beings together wake up. And I'm going to end by, I don't know the tune, it was a terrible tune, but I was at a political rally the other day, and someone made a song that actually comes from Exodus, when the Jews are leaving Egypt, and it sort of comes from something from that. No one is getting left behind this time. No one is getting left behind. We get there together, or don't get there at all. So thank you. And I guess I'll ask for questions. Now, I can't see everybody because there are a lot of people. So if you're on the screen and you have a question, do the hand raise thing. So that way I'll see.
We have a question in the Dharma room. I'm going to give the
Sure.
computer to Paul. And
Okay.
1 second.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi.
Hi.
During your talk, you mentioned fast chanting brings the mind
and body.
and the body together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, what do you mean by that, and why is that important?
Try it. You'll find out. So it's fast mantra. It's not chanting. There's no tune. Okay? It's just like kwanzimbosa, 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 kwanzimbosa. So when mind and body are separate, then, it's like you've sliced yourself in half and you have these two halves running around. Mind and body, in fact, are never separate, but we act like they are. So they come together, then you can function as a complete human being. So that's why it's important. And try it. See what happens. Some people hate it. Some people, they feel constipated when they do it. Another thing about meditation forms, they really have to fit your karma. So as I said, I couldn't do what am I don't know until I've been practicing for like 10 years. Some people just instantly, wow, this is great. And fast mantra, I loved it. But I know people have been practicing for a really long time and it just doesn't fit them. So whatever practice form you use when you're meditating, it has to fit. You shouldn't bounce from one to the other, but it has to fit. And then after a while, usually after many, many years, like 5 or 10 years, suddenly it might not fit anymore. So then you move to another one that fits. Okay? Anything else? Jeff, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little provocative, Zen
Oh,
Master.
please. Yes,
You
Zen Master.
said we practice for all beings,
Yeah,
but if I'm suffering,
yeah,
why would I be practicing for all beings? I come to practice because I'm struggling with something, or the
yeah.
world isn't right, or I'm looking for something. And so how do you work with that dichotomy that in some ways it's not really about other people, it's about what I need. And yet we're taught constantly to do it for all beings. So how do you hold those two together?
You know, when I have a hard time, it really helps me to understand I'm not the only person going through that. So, my suffering is not only my suffering. Many people are sharing my suffering. So if I open my heart, then this practice is no longer just about my suffering, even when I am suffering. I really do take comfort in that. You know, this is a very risky political moment, and there's a lot of really terrible things that might happen. And I really do take comfort that if those things happen, I'll be in it together with a lot of people. So that would be my response. Also, Zen Master Songsan always talked about how do you use your suffering. So we suffer, and our suffering enables us to open to other people in a way that it would not if we did not have those suffering. If you've ever been in a 12-step group, you understand this. It's the pain of being an addict or the pain of being someone close to an addict that enables you to help other people in that situation. So yeah. So thank you for your question. And Katya, you have a question.
Questions. My name's Jan.
Hi,
Questions from
Jan.
me. First, thank you for a wonderful talk. Uh, uh, you began by talking about practice forms. I,
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated that. But I wondered if you have advice or thoughts for those of us who've been practicing for a long time, or which is me not so much recently, those who are encountering this for the first time, or those maybe more like myself who've practiced and then had a pause and then look at the practice and the practice, it's there's a lot of sitting, there's a lot of moving furniture, bowing, and
Moving furniture?
time, right? And sometimes this is difficult to come into or come back to, and I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
So when my son turned 12, and when they're 12, you can't hire a babysitter. He's 45 now. But when he turned 12, we couldn't hire babysitters anymore. So I decided that I needed to stay home. I would just practice at home, and my husband would go to the Zen Center, and I would just stay home. And then I discovered very quickly that I stopped practicing. I believed in practice. I really believed in practice, and I believed in this practice. But I wasn't doing it. And I wasn't doing it for about 2 years. And my husband, was saying, like, you need to practice, and finally, I said to him, if you keep telling me I need to practice, I'll never practice again. So just shut up, And so he did. And then a few months later, I sort of, when he wasn't home, I kind of go into our little Dharma room and sort of sit a while. And then I started doing it more regularly. And he had no idea. I wasn't telling him because I wasn't doing this to make him happy. And finally, I said to him, honey, I've been practicing for a while, and our kid is 14. I think I can go to the Zen Center now, So you will do what you do, and it will unfold the way it unfolds. And that's all I have to say, So good luck. Are there any other questions?
Zen Master Bon Hae, thank you so much for your talk and for answering questions. So just some announcements before we end our practice today. Our annual 8-day retreat is coming up at the end of next month. I believe the first Friday is Friday the 27th of February, and we have our 8-day retreat following until the next Saturday. They'll be sitting in person in Berkeley and also online. So the link should be up shortly, and if you do want to sit, please register as soon as you decide to, so we know how many people will be in the Dharma room and how many people will be online. This speaker series continues next week. Is it Tim? Yes, Tim Callahan, next week we have Tim Callahan, Judo Popsneem, who will be speaking. Our schedule is, of course, posted on emptygatezen.com. Our practice continues this week as usual. Are there any other things that I should mention that I forgot? No. All right, great. Thank you all for your practice and joining us this evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Zen Master.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Kitos is thank you and finish. Kitos.
We are so spoiled.
Thank you.